Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ideanthro. Now today we're continuing this little series, again looking at what we can learn from nature and apply to bioretention systems to give us the best chance of the plants growing and the plants surviving. Now this is the third little video in that series, and before we get into it, I need to clear something up. So at the end of the last video, I made a comment about Ben, who's behind the camera again, not liking the word learnings. As soon as we put the camera down, Ben's like, I think you're confused. That conversation was about defendable versus defensible. It's true, Ben and I have never talked about the word learnings before and I was completely confused. Defensible, on the other hand, that's a whole nother story. We'll do a video about that at some point in the future. Anyway, what we're going to talk about today. So we're out here again at Griffith University Nathan campus. So in the last episode, you saw us walk down into this little creek here and look at the different plants. And we established that if you're right down near the creek, I think that it's probably a little bit too wet to be picking bioretention plants out of there, and that we might need to come back up the bank a little bit. So I want to show you something in this section right here, which is what I think is probably the right area for bioretention plants, to be having a look and to be seeing what might work here. Because if we go further down, it's probably a bit too wet. If we go further up the bank, maybe it's a little bit too dry. So I think this is the region. But what I want to point out is this, right? So in bioretention systems, conventionally, we have built them, in Australia anyway, I'm talking completely from an Australian perspective here. In Australia, we have often built them with lots of, these low growing plants like your lomandras, like your carex, like juncus, like isolepsis, all things that are roughly about this size. Typically not ground covers, not creeping ground covers or that sort of thing, more these kind of sedges, grasses, that sort of size of thing. And we've always, in the guidance, had this thing where we talk about wanting like 90% cover, and that's to try and get lots of plants there so we have lots of roots for stormwater treatment, but also to help shade out weeds and that sort of thing. And for a while now, that's kind of concerned me, because I come out into natural Australian bushland where these plants actually come from, and I look around, and well, do you see 90% coverage of plants here? I don't. I look around and I see, some lomandras, I see some vines, I see some trees, I see some fallen trees, but then I see lots of open space, lots of free space with leaf litter there. And I think we're kind of kidding ourselves if we're trying to build bioretention systems with this like total coverage of say lomandras or carex or whatever it is, and expecting that to last in the long term. In the short term, it seems to, right? Because we plant little tube stock at like 6 plants a square meter, and they all grow, and after like a year, we've got this super dense cover and it's all amazing, right? But then over time, I've seen plenty of systems where it kind of changes. We definitely lose some plants because we're not going to maintain 6 of those every square meter forever. And we get this change where we go back to more gaps in between. And there could be some reasons for that. Sometimes, right, it's improper maintenance and it's people spraying stuff out. But I suspect there's an element of things just trying to revert back to how these plants grow in nature. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm quite keen on where we can, and you can't do this in every instance. This applies more to like your precinct scale bioretention, like your bioretention basins that might be next to a park or that sort of thing. Where we can, to getting some trees in here, getting some canopy, getting some mid-story, getting some vines, to try and create an environment that is more like the natural habitat that these plants come from. Because then when we do get some change in the ground covers, when we do end up with less, say, lomandras on the floor, the system is still resilient because the canopy and the shade and the leaf drop can help to suppress weeds. That leaf drop helps to add organic matter back into the soil. We get this more complete ecosystem. And so this is another thing that I think we can learn from coming out into nature, again, where these plants grow, and trying to learn from it. Now, it's not to say that every part of the system is going to be as clear as every other, right? So we've got a particularly open spot here. If we spin around, obviously at other times, things can be more closed up. Over here, we've got a lot more vines growing in this region. We've also got more kind of these low-growing shrubby species as well, and things are a bit more closed in. But again, what we're not seeing there is wall-to-wall lomandras. The one spot out in nature where I have seen a bit of that happening is again when we get lower back down, and even here, right, we can see it. We'll wander back down. We can see it as soon as we get further down to the creek where there's more water available. Then yeah, we start to get the ferns and the thing that we think is carex they grow wall to wall down there. My guess, and I don't know this for sure, but my guess would be that's because there's more water available, so you can physically just get more of those plants growing in that tight little space. So look, that's it for this episode. Again, look, the message here, I think, is that if we want these systems to be resilient in the long term, we need to be looking to nature and seeing what works without our intervention. Because people, when we talk about bioretention, you get like 2 sentences into a conversation, someone's like, what about maintenance? And it's the right question to ask. And we need to get that right if we're going to be able to do this stuff on the large scale. Either by large scale, I mean either big systems, not necessarily big systems, but just many systems, you know, whatever. Get enough of these things in to make a difference. We need to solve the maintenance question. And one way to do that is to look out in nature, look at what is resilient in nature and try and mimic it. And I don't think we're doing that at the moment with relative monocultures of grasses and sedges. So sweet, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, have a great time. If you do want to know more about what it is that we do at Ideanthro, there's a few ways that you can find us. We have a website, which is ideanthro.com. There's a mailing list there on the bottom of the front page. There's a connect page where you can get through to like our Facebook and our YouTube and that sort of thing. And of course, if you've got something that you want to know more about, got a question, got something that's niggling your mind in this water-sensitive urban design space, got something that you disagree with that we've said, then hit us up, email us, leave a comment, so that we can bring that in. Maybe we can do a video about it in the future. Cool, that's it for now. Have a great one, and yeah, we'll see you later. Bye.